National Assembly of Wales is now in session, and the first item this afternoon are questions to the First Minister. And question 1 is Russell George.
Diolch, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister make a statement on the Welsh Government's school modernisation programme?
Yes, our £1.4 billion investment programme is benefiting over 150 schools in 22 local authorities across Wales. In the second year of a 5-year programme, final approval has already been given for work to go ahead on 79 business cases, including, as the member will know, Ysgol Dafydd Llwyd, and that represents 53% of the overall programme target.
Yeah, thank you, First Minister. That's very welcome as well. The Welsh Government has repeatedly confirmed that its school modernisation programme is more than just a building programme. It's about creating the right environment for students, regardless of their background and where they live. Do you therefore agree that in implementing school modernisation, all local authorities must do more than just consider the financial viability of secondary school provision when coming to a decision on proposals to close any school, and that every child should have the opportunity to be educated in a local school and a language of their choice?
Well, it's up to local authorities, of course, to take a decision as to how they organise education in their areas. It's the quality of the education provision that is one of the major factors, of course, that they should consider. But of course, local authorities in Wales know they are able to access funds to build new schools in a way that isn't available to them in England.
Mike Hedges.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I would like to highlight the new schools built and planned in Swansea East under the 21st Century Schools programme, including the recently built Burlais and the proposed replacement of Ysgol Gynradd Cymraeg Llawn Las. Is this one of the schemes at risk from the Welsh Conservatives' proposed cuts?
Well, it would seem to be. I mean, they want to cut education spending by 12%, even by their own admission in their own paper, which they produced. It was 20%, of course, before the Assembly election, as their own leader Nick Bourne said freely on Wales Today, live in fact in an interview. But I am pleased to see that Swansea's programme will see an investment of over £51 million in the area, with the Welsh Government contributing £25.6 million, because we know that we are moving ahead in ensuring that pupils in Wales have the right schools that they need for the future. And we have seen a schools building programme that has not been witnessed in Wales for many, many decades, and certainly wasn't witnessed in the 80s and 90s.
Simon Thomas.
Diolch Llywydd. Wel, un o'r cynlluniau sydd newydd cael ei cymodwyo'n symud i ymgynghofiad statudol yw cynllun Seaside, fel mae'n cael ei alw yn Llanelli. A gan fod hwn yn dechrau, fel ych chi newydd waed, a raglen o 5 mlynedd, fedwch chi, o'i sicrhad, byddwch chi fel Llywodraeth yn parhau gyda'r un buddsoddiad am y 5 mlynedd, a fydd yna ddim gofyniad pellach i awdurdodau lleol i dalu mwy i mewn i'r gonfa hon.
Nid yna beth yw'r nod, wrth gwrs, ni waan sicrhau bod y cynlluniau pan yn dod o'n blaen i ni fel Llywodraeth yn cynlluniau sydd yn gynaliadwy. Wrth gwrs, mae yna gyfraniad o awdurdodau lleol a chyfraniad hefyd, wrth gwrs, o Lywodraeth Cymru. Mae wedi dangos, wrth gwrs, bod e'n bosib i adeiladu ysgolion newydd sbon ar hyd a led Cymru wrth defnyddio'r ffordd o weithio hyn.
William Powell.
Diolch, Llywydd. First Minister, as you're aware, under the 21st Century Schools programme to which you've referred, there has been a move in recent times towards more generic builds to help to deliver full value for the Welsh pound. However, there is some evidence that in local authorities in Wales there is the potential for this to lead to a compromise in standards, with a more utilitarian style of building being commissioned. In this context, First Minister, do you agree with me that while there must be obviously an emphasis on value for money, it should not see a removal of a commitment to excellence in the design for school buildings, and that they should reflect appropriately the area and community in which they're built, and also involve full consultation with schools and the wider community?
Yes, they should. It's important that school buildings are sustainable, that they use as little energy as possible. I've seen good examples of that across Wales. It's what we expect, of course. We expect them to reach a high level of BREEAM approval when they're built. And I've been to many schools built across Wales. The buildings are far superior in every single instance to the buildings that they replaced. And we have seen schools that are not just fit for purpose, they're good places to learn, they're excellent places in which to teach as well. And in the cases that I have seen, they are additions to the local community in terms of their architecture and their contribution to the community.
Christine Chapman.
First Minister, through this programme, the 21st Century Schools programme, a new £50 million secondary school has been built in Aberdare, in addition to new primary schools for Abercynon, Cwmbach and Ynysboeth in my constituency. I also understand that RCT Council is now looking to the programme to deliver new school buildings to serve the communities of Cwmaman and Hirwaun. Will the Welsh Government continue to work with local authorities in this innovative way to deliver educational buildings that are aspirational and fit for purpose?
Absolutely. I congratulate RCT, of course, on their foresight and the way that they have worked with us in order to improve school buildings. You know, I went to school, I was in a comprehensive school in the 80s, and as somebody who went to a comprehensive school, I remember at the time that the idea in the 1980s of a new comprehensive school being built was fantastical. There was no money at all to build new schools. There was no money to maintain schools, let alone build them. That was the legacy of the Tory years. Now we build schools in Wales.
Question 2, Janet Howard.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer.
No, I'm the presiding officer. I'm not the deputy.
Sorry. Will the First Minister outline what plans the Welsh Government has to increase GP recruitment in Wales?
Yes, we have, of course, more GPs than ever in Wales, and we are working with NHS Wales and other partners on a range of actions to support and develop the primary care workforce in Wales, including the recruitment of GPs. And those actions are set out in the document A Planned Primary Care Workforce for Wales, which was launched on the 17th of July.
Thank you, First Minister. It is clear that we are failing to adequately recruit GPs here in Wales, especially in rural areas where long-established practices are closing down. There are at least 2 practices in my region in North Wales, including the Pendyffryn surgery in Prestatyn, who are due to close next year as a result of retirements and a failure to attract GPs to buy into the practices. What guarantees can you provide to ensure that every patient will continue to have access to a general practitioner in their locality?
Well, the Health Board, in the case of Pendyffryn, is working closely with the practice to ensure that patients get the local services that they need, and the Health Board is considering a range of models, which includes a new partnership, merging with another practice, or, of course, bringing the practice into Health Board management, which we know has worked successfully in the past. But what I can say is we don't expect the service to diminish in any way. We have to be, of course, more innovative in terms of attracting GPs. GPs are less likely now to want to buy into a practice anyway. For many of them, they wish to be salaried, they want to be able to move around, they don't want to be tied to one place. For some, of course, the contractor model will be the model that they wish to use. What's important, of course, is that the public get the service that they need, and the practice at Pendyffryn, in fairness to Pendyffryn, and the local health board are working hard to ensure that remains the case.
Mike Hedges.
Officer, I would like to stress the importance of primary care, even if the Conservatives want to increase expenditure on hospitals at the expense of primary care and social services. Does the First Minister agree with me that one solution to the shortage of GPs is to increase the number of salaried GPs?
Well, it's part of it, yes, because I think, as I say, the old model of buying into a practice is less attractive now than it was in the past. There are a number of reasons. Money up front is one reason. Another reason is that increasingly doctors want to be more mobile. They don't want to be in one place for the rest of their working lives. They want to be able to move around. What's important is that the chances there to operate under the traditional way of working, if I can put it that way, but of course there are opportunities to become salaried GPs, so that those GPs are able then to contribute to the community, but also feel that their method of employment is appropriate to them.
Ellen Jones.
Prif Weinidog, fel ni wedi clywed, mae yna broblem penodol i recrwtio meddygon teulu yng nghefn gwlad. Yn Awstralia ac yn yr Unol Daleithiau, le mae hyn hefyd yn gallu bod yn broblem, mae nhw wedi gosod quota ar ysgolion meddygol i dderbyn myfyrwyr i'r ysgolion meddygol o ardaloedd cefn gwlad, oherwydd mae rhain i'n fwy tebygol wedyn i ddychwelyd i weithio i gefn gwlad. Nawr, pam nad ych llywodraeth chi yn fodlon edrych ar enghreifftiau radical fel hyn, sy'n gweithio mewn mannau arall, fel gallwn ni sicrhau mewn 10 mlynedd fod gyda ni gyflenwad o feddygon teulu yn para mewn i'r NHS yng nghefn gwlad Cymru?
Dyw hwnna yn creu perygl, a byddai'r safon yn cwmpo. Os chi'n gweud o mae yna un grŵp o bobl, dylen nhw gael rhyw fath o ffordd arbennig mewn i'r ysgol feddygol, Mae hwnna'n meddwl, wrth gwrs, rei eraill sydd wedi gwneud yn well ynglyn â lefel A ddim yn cael y cyfle, neu beth yw'r perygl yn dod fe. A ffordd i wneud hwn yw sicrhau bod yna ffyrdd gwahanol o weithio fel meddyg teuluol ar gael mewn sawl rhan o Gymru. Nid dim ond un model, sef model y contractor. Mae hwnna yn fodel sydd ddim mor eang a beth oedd yn wir o'r blaen. So beth sy'n bwysig yw sicrhau bod yna gyfleoedd ar gael i bobl i weithio yn y cefn gwlad, a ni'n gwybod wrth wneud hynny, wrth gwrs, allan ni barhau i sicrhau bod y nifer o feddygon teulu yn dal i godi.
Alan Roberts.
Prif Weinidog, mae yna rhyw 19,000 o bobl yn ardal Prestatyn yn pryderu am y sefyllfa yn amlwg, a dwi'n derbyn y ffaith bod chi'n deud bod y bwrdd iechyd erbyn hyn gofod ceisio achub y sefyllfa. Ond mae yna nifer cynyddol o ddoctoriaid ifanc erbyn hyn yn mynd i weithio dramwr. Ydych chi wedi cael trafodaeth efo cynyddu y nifer sydd yn cael i hyfforddi yng Nghymru, os oes yna nifer ohonyn nhw yn mynd dramor ar ôl hynny, a hefyd, oes yna unrhyw ffordd gall Llywodraeth Cymru neu'r Gwasanaeth Iechyd clymu y doctoriad yma am nifer o flynyddoedd ar ôl i ni wario gymaint o arian yn ei hyfforddi nhw yn y lle cyntaf?
Problem yw, wrth gwrs, y neges bydd y rai nhw'n clywed yw pidwch dod i Gymru hyfforddi cyrch i Loegr, lle does dim modd i glymu chi. Na beth yw'r problem. Ni'n gwybod os chi'n hyfforddi mwy o doctoriad, dyw hwnna ddim yn meddwl bydd yna mwy o doctoriad ar gael yng Nghymru. Beth sy'n bwysig yw bod bobl yn gweld bod Cymru yn le da i weithio yno. Ni wedi gweld hwnna, wrth gwrs, mae yna mwy o feddygon teuluol wedi dod i weithio yng Nghymru, mwy na 10 mlynedd yn ôl, fe wedes i, mwy nag o'r blaen. Yna'r ffordd i sicrhau bod bobl yn eisiau gweithio yng Nghymru. Bydd meddygon yn dal i fynd tramor, achos mae yna gyfle dyn nhw i wneud hynny. Sy'n bwysig yw bod rhywun sy'n mynd, bod nhw'n dod nôl a dod profiad gyda nhw, a rhai wrth gwrs sydd yma yng Nghymru yn ystyried Cymru fel lle da i weithio yna. A yna beth i fi yw'r blaenoriaeth, sicrhau bod Cymru'n cael ei ystyried fel lle a cael gwasanaeth iechyd sydd yn rhywle da dros ben i ddatblygu gyrfa.
Darren Miller.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The announcement of the intention to serve notice on the existing GP contract in Prestatyn has been a very difficult one, I know, for the GP practice there, and I have no doubt that it's not just the rural communities that are suffering from GP recruitment difficulties, but of course this is an example of an urban community which is also suffering as well. Can I just ask you though, First Minister, to what extent do you feel that the reputation of the Welsh National Health Service, and particularly the Betsy Cadwallader University Health Board, may have contributed to these difficulties in recruitment in North Wales? Because I think it's no coincidence that the areas of North Wales where there do appear to be more difficulties in recruitment do appear to be places like Wrexham, Glanconway, and now Prestatyn, where these challenges are beginning to manifest. Do you see a correlation between the problems in North Wales and at the Betsy Cadwallader Board and the reputation of that board in what has happened here?
No, I see no evidence of that at all. If I were a junior doctor, I'd be looking at the NHS in England, given the potential strike that may be called there, the first in 40 years, under his party, and what they propose. The Pen Dyffryn practice, in fairness, is working with the local health board. If it is the case that the practice is brought into health board management, then so be it. That will allow the service to continue as far as local people are concerned, and will help, of course, to deliver the board's long-term strategic model. And I very much welcome the fact that the BMA, through its General Practitioners Committee, has worked very closely with us as a government in order to develop the GP workforce in Wales.
We now move to questions of the party leaders, and first this afternoon, Leader of the Opposition, Andrew R.G. Davies.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Good afternoon, First Minister. It's good to see in the public gallery a good crowd of people watching First Minister's questions, the biggest crowd I've seen for quite some time. Regrettably, if you look at the agenda today, there are only 3 items of business on that agenda, so we can hardly promise the gallery an action-packed afternoon. Last Tuesday, we finished at 5 o'clock. The first Tuesday after an 8-week recess, your government only tabled enough business to take us till 10 to 5. Tuesdays is government business days. You've got an array of ministers there. If ever anyone wanted to see whether your government has run out of steam and ideas, do they only need to look at the agenda and the proposals that your government are bringing before this Assembly?
Well, I thank the Leader of the Opposition for referring to my constituents, actually, who are mainly up in the gallery. I'm sure that they will welcome being mentioned by him. Perhaps less impressed with his performance, but there we are. It's a matter for them to judge, of course. We have a bill before the Assembly this afternoon, which will take at least 3 hours. A bill that will add once again to the Welsh Statute book, and he knows full well the bills take some time to be scrutinised. Where are his ideas to Wales's future? It's an empty vessel at the end of the day. If he's trying to look for an idea, he rings Downing Street and gets the idea. He's got no ideas of his own at all. A press conference that his party held this morning, all about local government mergers, and his spokesperson was asked, well, how many authorities do you think there should be in Wales? Don't know was the answer. Don't know. Well, it's about time the people of Wales had answers from him and his party.
Don't know, partner. I'm really pleased that they are your constituents. I'm sure they'd all have a view on your actions around the Princess of Wales Hospital and the times we've debated in this chamber, First Minister, which I'm sure they want answers for. But I take your point on local government. We have the local government bill coming through this afternoon, a bill which you will not be able to implement because you haven't got the numbers. But we have brought forward a policy position today that would allow a referendum for local people to determine whether the merger was in their interest and in their community interest. The answer's in the question. It's local government. So surely local people should have a view and be able to express that view via a referendum. If you actually agree with that, will you support the amendment today? And actually, you can make progress on local government reorganisation.
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm sure people will notice his gratuitous swipe at the Princess of Wales Hospital. Completely out of context with the question that he originally asked. I know it's painful for you on those benches, but you have to listen just for once, OK? As far as local government is concerned, what kind of a policy is that? We've got no idea, so we'll have referendums to have a completely piecemeal reform across Wales. It's about time you had ideas. It's about time you thought of your own ideas, separate from those of your party in England. And let me tell him one thing. He talks of local government. He wants to cut local government spending by 12.5%. There it is. That's his own document, 12.5%. Let me tell him that will send the council tax up by 38% in Wales. 38% council tax increase just to maintain services where they are. At the end of the day, what his party wants is the people to pay more for services that are worse because of funding cuts from his party.
As usual, the First Minister brings out documents that bear no relation to the election we are facing in May. We have called for a council tax freeze time and time again, and I have no hesitation in commending the ability of any government to listen to local communities, and it is a shame that you have not agreed to endorse the amendment that is before the Assembly this afternoon that would empower local communities to actually endorse or not whether their councils should merge. But on the weekend you talked about delivery, and you said that you delivered on your programme for government when you were talking to the comrades in Brighton. Well, what about, you say about your constituents, 1 in 7 will be on a waiting list, an NHS waiting list in Wales, which has doubled under your tenure as First Minister. When are the waiting times going to come down here in Wales, and when are we actually going to see real progress on cancer waits, on waiting times, referral to treatment times, which have, as I said, 1 in 7 people on a waiting time and have doubled under your leadership, First Minister?
The figure that he refers to includes people who've just been referred by their GP that day. Quite often, people who, of course, aren't going to see a specialist within a day. But let me tell him, cancer waiting times in Wales are better than in England. For the first time, over 70% of people diagnosed with cancer are now surviving for at least 1 year. We know that cancer cancer waits are dropping. We know that 89% of respondents, according to the Welsh Cancer Patient Experience Survey, rate their care as good or excellent. And we know that there's been a 44% reduction in diagnostic waits over 8 weeks. That's what we offer. Let me tell you what he offers. 12.5% cut in local government spending, 12% cut in education spending, a 30% cut in spending on job creation and transport, a 25% cut in environment sustainability and housing, a 15% cut for farming and rural affairs, 15% cut for farming and rural affairs, 20% cut in for heritage spending. This is what his party would do to us. This document, his party published. He has the nerve to say it's nothing to do with us, it's nothing to do with the election. This is the evidence of what his party would do to Wales if they ever got their hands ever near the levers of power.
We now move to Thank you very much. We now move to the Leader of Plaid Cymru, Leanne Wood.
Diolch, Llywydd. First Minister, since 2010, average wages have fallen in Wales by more than £2,000 per year. For many people, outgoings have increased, and so people's buying power is significantly lower than what it was. Is it not right, therefore, that the public sector sets an example in tackling income inequality so that the earnings of those at the top of organisations are not so much more than those at the bottom of the scale?
Oh, I think that's absolutely true as far as the public sector is concerned. Yes, because we've seen some ridiculous examples of salary rates in local government particularly. Pembrokeshire Council, 190,000 plus a Porsche to their chief executive, and that's an extreme example, but unfortunately not so extreme that it stands out that much. I think it is absolutely right that we should look in the public sector to keep on extending the living wage and to make sure that people are not paid excessive amounts for working in the public sector.
Well, just last week, First Minister, your party running Cardiff City Council blocked a salary cap of £100,000 per year, which is, I'm sure you'd agree, hardly a poverty wage. Now, in the case of Cardiff City Council, an authority ranked the worst in the country for service delivery, we have the chief executive earning almost £30,000 a year more than the British state prime minister. Will you explain to this Assembly and to the people of this country and your constituents in the public gallery why you support policies that exacerbate this income inequality?
As a matter for Cardiff Council, I deplore huge salaries in the public sector. I also encourage local authorities to pay the living wage to their employees. And I wonder if you could confirm to me that's not the case with Plaid Run councils.
We support the paying of the living wage as well and a transition towards that. But you've had plenty of opportunities to address this issue of top officer pay. Plaid Cymru attempted to amend local government legislation to address excessive pay at the top of councils, and you refused to accept those amendments. So you have refused to address this question, and it's clear that the First Minister is yet again illustrating the usual pattern of Labour saying one thing publicly and doing the opposite when in power. Despite that inexplicable decision made by Labour in Cardiff on senior officers' pay, at least the decision was made publicly for all to see your party's true colours. Now, if you can't explain your party's actions in Cardiff, perhaps you can explain to us why you've taken the decision to stop publishing cabinet decisions. This, in Plaid Cymru's view, is a backward step which flies in the face of any notion of a new kind of honest and straight-talking politics, does it not?
We haven't taken a decision to stop publishing cabinet decisions. I've no idea what she's talking about. In terms of what she said about... in terms of... Well, I have no idea what the Leader of Plaid Cymru is talking about. Cabinet minutes and decisions will continue to be published as they always have done. I don't know where on earth she gets that idea from. Secondly, I come back to the point she made earlier. I want to see our local authorities paying a living wage to those who work for them. She has accepted more or less that her local authorities, that her party runs, do not all do that. When they do start paying a living wage to their employees, then she can lecture us as a party.
We now move to the Leader of the Welsh Liberal Democrats, Kirsty Williams.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. First Minister, I am delighted that it has now dawned on you that in order for Wales to prosper, your government needs to be fearlessly pro-business. The Manufacturers Organisation, EEF, shows that manufacturers in Wales are languishing at the bottom of the Business Confidence League. What can those manufacturers expect to see from your government now that you've discovered this truth?
Well, I mean, that is, I have to say, an incredible spinning of reality. She will see over the past 4 years what has happened in the Welsh economy. She will see unemployment going down. She will see economic inactivity going down. She will see employment rates going up. She will see investors coming to Wales, investors like Pinewood coming to Wales. She will see us working with sectors such as life sciences to bring investment into Wales. And she will see that Wales, particularly as one example in creative industries, is leading Europe in terms of the investment and jobs being created. We have always been a pro-business government. We have always had a pro-business minister with an excellent reputation amongst the business community.
First Minister, the EEF Foundation would not seek to misrepresent the views of manufacturers in Wales, and unfortunately it is true to say that they feel that they do not have confidence to move forward. But Wales does have a proud history of manufacturing, and in communities up and down this country, in firms large and small, they are exporting Welsh-made products around the world. Now, one way we can help those businesses to expand and to employ more people is to look at aspects of the business rate system. Do you agree with me and my party that the abolition of business rates on plant and machinery will not only help secure and protect jobs in Wales, but actually would boost manufacturing confidence and help them employ more people?
But what about businesses that export services? What about businesses, for example, that manufacture software? They don't use plant and machinery as stuff. It doesn't help them at all. I did notice with interest what the Liberal Democrats had proposed, but we believe the approach we've taken in terms of small business rate relief and the way we extended that year by year has been more effective in helping small businesses. We also provide them with support to export, not just through what happens in Wales, but through the offices that we have abroad, and of course the way in which they work with UKTI. And we've seen, of course, many Welsh businesses being successful in terms of exporting and being able to be part of the supply chain of the larger job announcements that we've had coming into Wales as well.
I'm surprised, First Minister, you haven't taken this opportunity to support a policy, not just a policy being promoted by my party, but a policy that was being promoted by members of your own business rate advisory group. They saw the benefit of what this could deliver for manufacturing industry in Wales, and perhaps you'd like to go back again and have a look at the merits of this policy. Now, one of the other ways in which we could help protect jobs across Wales is supporting the tourism sector. Over 128,000 people in Wales rely on the tourism industry for their employment. Now, we have the highest rate of VAT levied on tourism in the whole of the EU, despite regulations that would allow it to be cut to as little as 5%. Now, my party has demonstrated our clear support for such a reduction. Will you commit your party to support this policy and do what you can to lobby the Westminster government to take advantage of this EU derogation and allow us to support our tourism industry, not just here in Wales, but across the UK?
Well, I have sympathy for the argument, but I have to ask, what was she doing before me? Her party was in government in Westminster, and yet apparently that's forgotten about now. The opportunity was there for the Lib Dems to make that argument when they were in government in London. She knows that VAT isn't devolved, and I may have sympathy for her position, but nothing was said before May when she had the opportunity to influence the UK government. Tourism is important. We know that we've seen an increase in the visitors coming into Wales. We have spent, of course, money on promoting Wales and promoting Visit Wales, money that the Conservative Party said was propaganda. You know, money that's used to promote Wales around the world, to bring visitors into Wales, and that's government propaganda. It shows you the lack of ambition and sheer laziness on that side of the chamber.
We now move back to questions on the paper, and question 3 is Angela Burns. Thank you, Presiding Officer. Good afternoon, First Minister. Will you make a statement, please, on teachers' workload?
Yes, it's important that teachers in Wales are not overburdened. There are a number of statutory provisions in force which aim to ensure teachers have a suitable work-life balance and maintain their health and safety as far as is reasonably possible.
Thank you very much indeed. The burden of excessive workload is something that teachers and teaching unions raise repeatedly. And I think we need to bear in mind that in a significant number of schools, teachers are having to help their pupils wash, dress, be clothed properly and fed before they can start the working day. And yet, of course, those actions, those elements of pastoral care are not taken into account, are not factored in how those teachers may be judged in the performance of their duties. It also adds greater pressure to the length of their day. First Minister, I wonder what other support you might be able to bring to a school environment to help support not only those pupils, but those teachers who have to do much more than just teach.
I have to say to the member that my mother was a primary school teacher, and what she has outlined was common practice. in the 70s and 80s as well. It's not new. It wasn't recognised then, isn't, and in the way that is the case now, perhaps. Can I say to her that one of the issues, of course, that we have to deal with is the fact that when we talk about workload issues, paying conditions aren't devolved. And that's half the story. We have to consider the devolution of teachers' paying conditions so that we can deal with workload issues properly, work with the teaching unions properly, and deliver a really good holistic package for teachers across Wales. And that is something certainly that we will need to consider in the near future.
Simon Thomas.
Diolch, Llywydd. Wrth gwrs, gallwn ni ddim edrych ar y baich sydd ar ysgwyddo'r athrawon, ond i bai bod ni'n cael y cyfan oll o ddatganoli y moda gwaith a cyflog athrawon. Oedd hwn wedi cael ei argymell yn Comisiwn Silc. Gofynnes i'r eich gweinidog am hyn ti wythnos yn ôl a wedodd bod trafodion felly above my pay grade. Dwi'n credu oedd yn cyfeirio at eich pay grade chi, Prif Weinidog. A fydd y Deddf Cymru yn datganoli y moda gwaith athrawon i ni?
Wel, rhywbeth wrth gwrs i Llywodraeth y Deddf Unedig yw hwnna, ond fy marn i yw mae'r amser wedi dod i ystyried hwnna. Neu, bydd ni mewn sefyllfa yn credu mewn 5 mlynedd lle bydd na telerau sydd yn mynd ar hyd a led Cymru a Lloegr, ond dim ond yng Nghymru bydd yn berthnasol. So, pethau wedi newid siw gymaint yn Lloegr, so mae'r amser yn dod. Wi yn bersonol ddim wedi dadlau yn ddiweddar yn erbyn datganoli telerau a ffai, ond wrth gwrs mae'n holl bwysig i sicrhau bod unrhyw setliad ariannol yn ddigonol mwyn sicrhau bod yna ddim mwy o faich ar Lywodraeth Cymru ynglyn â gweinyddu y system newydd. So, mae yna drafodaethau wedi cymryd lle, fy marn i yw, mae hwn rhywbeth nawr mae rhaid ni ystyried yn fuan.
Question 4, Peter Black.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I declare a relevant interest as a member of the local council? Will the First Minister make a statement on the Welsh Government's policy on funding local government?
Yes, our policy is to distribute the majority of the available funding through the local government settlement using an agreed formula based on relative need.
Thank you for that answer, First Minister, and I very much support the non-hypothecation of funding to local government. You will know your Finance Minister made a statement last week in terms of giving additional money to the health service, which was very welcome. But of course, the big issue is how the health service interacts with social services. And given that local government has had disproportionate cuts to its finances last year, disproportionately to the cut that you had as Welsh Government, can we have some assurances that in the future local government settlements, due regard will be made to the interaction between social services and health, so that we're able to actually get a proper cohesion in terms of delivery and making sure that social services are properly resourced and not undermine the money which you're putting into the health service?
Well, bear in mind, of course, that the average spend per head on health and social services in Wales is 8% higher per head than it is in England. It's right to say that times are difficult for local government. Of course, we all understand that, as they are for us. But in the past 4 years, the local government has been protected. Yes, it was difficult last year, and let's not pretend that things will be easy in the years to come. So, for example, though local government has seen its budget cut, it's certainly not been at the equivalent level of the budget cut that we have received from Westminster. So, for example, we've had budget cuts of around about 10%, as he will know. Local government at the moment stands at a cut of 7.4%. There's been a relative amount of protection there. We can't do it forever. We do understand that social services are important, and that's why we've always seen health and social services as being part of a package. Simply spending more on health but destroying the social services budget, as is happening in England, simply means that there is more pressure on hospitals, certainly there's more pressure on local authorities, and people are in hospital for longer than they need to be.
David Rees.
First Minister, Welsh Labour governments have always looked to support our public services, but it's clear that the cuts from Westminster are biting hard into this endeavour. The UK government's policies under David Cameron and George Osborne is to decimate our public services, and that's clearly evident from the attempts to have 40% cuts in departments in Whitehall, which will mean record cuts coming again to Wales. When you finalise your budget for next year, following the autumn, perhaps actually the winter statement, will you seek to ensure fair funding for local authorities to allow them to continue providing our much-needed public services?
Well, I mean, it's part of the problem we have here is that there's certainly a naked attempt by the UK government to raise money in whatever way possible. We've seen what's happening in the courts. Our courts are being destroyed. To appear in front of the criminal courts now, there is a financial incentive to plead guilty, often to an offence that someone hasn't committed. our justice system is beginning to look less of a justice system and more like a racket, given what's been happening. That is something that we would never do if we had devolution of the justice system. Now, I know it confuses Plaid Cymru at times that I will say something that is different to the Labour Party in London, but that's devolution. But I'd have more respect, I'd have more respect for the Conservatives if at any one time in the past 4 years they'd ever said anything different from what they were told by David Cameron. We've had cuts of 10% in our budget. Not only have the Conservatives not said anything about those cuts, but they've welcomed them. Surely the time has come for a proper Welsh Conservative Party that has a proper Welsh view and stands up for Wales.
Jonathan Saunders.
Presiding Officer. First Minister, it is the cuts to local government by your Welsh Labour government that has forced our councils across Wales to seek millions of pounds worth of efficiency savings, closing public libraries, put toilets, shortening contract hours for our lower paid staff. Yet the taxpayers of Wales will rightly be concerned to learn that over £100 million has been spent on redundancy golden handshakes for council managers over the last 3 years, with some going through a revolving door process, often reappearing in another role or as an external consultant. First Minister, in light of these horrendous figures, will you commit to a review of senior officer salaries and such high redundancy payments across local government?
Well, the independent remuneration panel is already doing that. That's the whole point of the panel. But I have to say to the member, she cannot escape responsibility for the funding cuts. No. Our budget's been cut by 10% from her party. And what they're trying to pull is a trick of saying that somehow it's nothing to do with them. Well, let's look at the evidence. I was once a lawyer. Let's look at the evidence. Yes, it is right to say that local government funding has been cut. Of course it does. Of course it does, because of the funding settlement that we've received. But according to our own party, it hasn't been cut enough. If you stood up and First Minister, you haven't cut local government spending enough because we would do 12.5%, then perhaps you'd have more credibility. The reality is that if her party ever controlled the local government budget in Wales, not only would we see a 12.5% cut, but we'd also see a 38% increase in council tax.
Aled Roberts. Alan Fred Jones. Sorry, Aled Roberts.
Diolch yn fawr. Wel, fyswn ni'n cytuno efo chi ac yn ymuno chi yn y condemniad ar y toriadau sydd yn dod lawr o Lundain wrth gwrs bod ni'n gwybod bod cynlluniau Is-deitlau hefyd yn golygu bydd yna doriadau sylweddol yn y gyllideb sy'n dod lawr o Lundain. Ond tra da ni'n beio yn gilydd ar toriad yma yn eich beio chi, y ffaith amdani di bod Llywodraeth leol yn wynebu efallai un o'r argyfyngau mwyaf ers degawdau. A gwirionedd yng Ngwynedd ydy, mae yna gyfarfod heddiw yn y Felin Heli, lle mae'r cyngor yn ymgynghori ar cyhoedd ar doriadau o 12 miliwn o bunnau toriadau i wasanaethau uniongyrchol. Ond ydych chi'n wynebu hyn efo pob cyngor yng Nghymru a dweud y gwir, felly y cwestiwn sydd, mae rhaid bod chi wedi wynebu hwn eich hunain, pa wasanaethau mae'r Llywodraeth yn deimlo y gellir arbed neu gellir cael gwared ohonyn nhw ymyd y Llywodraeth leol mwyn iddyn nhw allu byw o fewn yr arian sydd yn dod iddyn nhw.
Wel, mater yw hwn wrth gwrs i awdurdod lleol. Bydd awdurdod lleol wrth gwrs yn ystyried yn gynta gwasanaethau statudol. Wy'n deall hynny, fi'n cofio pan o'n i'n gynghorydd yn Pen y Bont yn y 90au, gweld 13% yn cael ei dorri mas o gyllideb Pen y Bont ym 1996 gan y Llywodraeth y pryd hynny. A gweld wrth gwrs treth y cyngor ymlaen o 50% dros Cymru, rhywbeth sydd ddim wedi digwydd ers hynny. Ond ni'n erbyn wrth gwrs i awdurdod lleol i ystyried wneud safio arian mewn rhannau o'i gwaith sydd ddim yn delio yn uniongyrchod cyhoedd. Mae fe'n anodd i nhw fel mae'n anodd i ni. Ond wrth gwrs, ni'n gyd mewn yr un sefyllfa lle mae'r faint o arian sydd wedi dod o San Steffan wedi cael ei dorri ac i dorri ac i dorri. A mae yna wath i ddod.
Question 5, Jenny Rathbone.
What work has the Welsh Government done to assess the reduction in carbon emissions that will arise from the South Wales Metro project?
Well, of course, one of the priority outcomes for the Metro is to reduce CO2 equivalent emissions. and by moving to modern and electric traction methods, CO2 emissions, of course, will be reduced significantly.
Obviously, the VW scandal of where the largest company in Germany has been deliberately cheating on the emissions testing will no doubt put the spotlight on the quality of the air we are breathing, and nowhere more so than in Cardiff Central. What detailed analysis has the government done on the air quality benefits from reduced vehicle carbon emissions of each phase of the metro, which will no doubt be a key determining factor as to how much money the EC could be providing, as it's one of its key provisions?
Yes, well, in the first year of operation, electrification is estimated to deliver a reduction of in carbon emissions from the rail vehicles themselves of about 20%. On top of that, we know, of course, from the Cardiff Capital Region Metro study that some 24% of CO2 emissions in Cardiff are generated by road transport. The more people we can shift off the roads and onto the trains and, of course, hybrid buses, then, of course, that 20% figure from reduction in rail emissions will be added to from the reductions in road emissions as well.
William Graham.
To realise the maximum potential, as you said, Minister, very necessary to coordinate both bus and rail transport. So could I ask you, have you considered extending loans to those operators of buses to use alternative fuels to diesel and petrol?
Well, these are matters, of course, that have been primarily for the UK government. It is something, certainly I've not been approached personally by operators regarding any such proposals, but of course we'd be happy to see what can be done in order to assist any kind of shift from the traditional diesel engines to hybrid and in-time hydrogen cell.
Elena Parrott.
Diolch Llywydd. First Minister, we will only achieve those cuts in emissions if we electrify all of the Valleys lines. But Penarth, the Maesteg and the Vale of Glamorgan lines appear to have disappeared from the National Transport Finance Plan that was discussed last week. In fact, they don't even appear in the 2020 and beyond column. So can you tell me, seeing as the Minister for Economy, Science and Transport didn't answer this question last week, what has happened to those lines and give an assurance to the passengers that they will be electrified as was intended?
Well, the intention is to look to electrify the system on a bit-by-bit basis. If we try and electrify every single line all at once, the amount of disruption is as the member can imagine, enormous. So what we are looking at the moment is to how we can introduce electrification on a line-by-line basis, looking at lines to see where electrification is appropriate, which is at least most of the network, and looking to see where service delivery improvements can be looked at in other ways. But certainly the intention is to move ahead now with electrification, and there's no question of any line being left behind in terms of the service and frequency that will be provided and the comfort that will be provided for passengers.
Question 6, Elin Jones.
Beth yw'r blaenoriaethau Llywodraeth Cymru ar gyfer gwella perfformiad y gwasanaeth iechyd gwladol?
Wel, I barhau'r gwelliant mewn perfformiad, a ni wedi gweld ers datganoli, ac wrth gwrs I barhau I sicrhau bod y gwasanaeth iechyd yng Nghymru yn canolbwyntio ar ansawdd ac ar brofiad y claf.
Prif Weinidog, mae ymchwil a gyhoeddwyd yn ddiweddar yn yr European Journal of Cancer yn dangos fod y gyfradd survival, cyfradd goroesi o ganser yn y Deyrnas Gyfunol gyda'r gweitha yng Ngorllewin Ewrop, a'r prif reswm am hynny yw perfformiad gwael o ran diagnosis cynnar. O fewn y Deyrnas Gyfunol, mae'n amrywiaeth perfformiad sylweddol ar hyn. 8% o bobl yn aros dros 6 wythnos yn Lloegr am brawf colonoscopi, 46% o bobl yng Nghymru yn aros dros 6 wythnos. Ar rhywbeth mor bwysig a phrofion cancer, Prif Weinidog, pam 4 mlynedd a hanner mewn eich llywodraeth chi, mae perfformiad eich llywodraeth chi mor wael ar hyn?
Wel, mae'n nifer o bobl sydd wedi cael I roi o feddyg teuluol I arbenigwyr wedi cynyddio o 12% dros y flwyddyn diwetha yn unig. So felly mae'r nifer o bobl sydd yn drwy'r system wedi cynyddu. Mae fe'n bwysig, ni'n derbyn hwn bod ni'n sicrhau bod ni'n dal I leihau'r nifer o bobl sydd yn aros gormod o amser am ddiagnosis, ac wrth gwrs mae hwnna'n rhywbeth ni'n canolbwyntio ar hyn o bryd, ond fe nes I sôn am wrthos diwetha. Wrth gwrs mae'n bwysig o bobl yn cael diagnosis mor gyntaf sy'n bosib, ond hefyd mae'n bwysig dros ben bod nhw'n gallu cael triniaeth mor gyntaf sy'n bosib hefyd.
David Rees.
Diolch, Lewis, and can I make a declaration of relevant interest? My wife is a member of the healthcare profession in the NHS. First Minister, the workforce in the NHS is the strength of the NHS here in Wales. And following on from Ellen Jones's point about the diagnostics, it's obviously it's the staff and the workforce to develop and deliver those services. And it's important to address the increase of healthcare professionals within the NHS. Can you provide details of future workforce planning for NHS in Wales so we can tackle those issues?
We know that workforce planning is crucially important. We've done it, of course, with the primary care sector. I talked about that earlier on. We also know, of course, it's important to have the right facilities in place, which is why, of course, the investments both already being taken in Velindre and beyond will be hugely important in order to ensure that access to diagnosis and treatment is hastened again, particularly in the south of Wales. We know, looking at our cancer waiting times, that those figures have been improving, and we are compared to England. We do better in England in that regard. Cancer survival rates are improving, but it's clear for all the UK that there is still work yet to be done in order to improve survival rates even further.
Paul Davis.
Diolch. Prif Weinidog, mae'ch llywodraeth chi'n cadw dweud bod rhaid i'r gwasanaeth iechyd i newid mwyn gwella perfformiad. Nawr, caiwyd yr uned gofal arbennig i fybanod yn ysbyty Llwynhelig gan eich gweinidog chi a trosglwyddi'r gwasanaeth yni i ysbyty Glangwili. Nawr, byddwch chi'n ymwybodol bod adroddiad dros dro coleg pediatric brenhinol ac iechyd plant wedi dweud bod y ward bybanod yng Glangwili ddim yn addas i'r pwrpas. Yn yr amgylchiadau, gallwch chi esbonio un etholwyr i pam fod eich llywodraeth chi wedi cael uned gofal arbennig i fybanod yn ysbyty Llwynhelig cyn bod gwasanaethau priodol a digonol ar gael yn ysbyty Glangwili.
Spin mawr arall, ac fel yn gwybod y net, bod y adroddiad wedi gweud bod e ddim yn gwneud unrhyw synnwr o gwbl i gadw'r system fel oedd e. A mae fe yn dadle yn erbyn y doctoriad. Mae'n dadle o blaid gwasanaeth sydd yn wath i ddietholwyr e. Pigo un bisin o'r... coeth amdano fe. Fi'n gwybod bod e ddim yn gwneud lot o... bod arweinydd yr wrthblaid ddim yn digon mor dda yna yn gofyn cwestiynau, ond dwi'n mynd digon dan heclo. Ond y sefyllfa yw hwn. Y sefyllfa yw hwn. Right? A hynny yw, mae eisiau... should be shot. Oh, there we are. There we have heard that before. Y sefyllfa yw hwn. A hynny yw bod rhaid cael adeilad newydd. Ni'n gwybod hynny am y gwaith yn cael ei wneud a buddsoddiad yn cael ei wneud yn hwnna, ond fe wedodd yr adroddiad byddai fe'n gwneud unrhyw synnwr cynligol i fynd nôl i'r hen system. Ni mynd i ddilyn beth wedodd y doctoriaid i hunain, ac sy'n bwysig dros ben bod bobl Sir Benfro yn cael y gwasanaeth y dilyn nhw.
Kirsty Williams.
First Minister, GPs in Crickhowell have expressed concern to me that women that they are referring with a query breast cancer are waiting in excess of 12 weeks before they see a consultant in the Aneurin and Bevan Trust. Would you agree with me that those 12 weeks must be the longest 12 weeks of those women's lives? And would you agree with the doctors that say in some cases that 12-week wait can change a woman's prognosis? Will you commit to looking into why women in South East Paris are having to wait in excess of 12 weeks before they can see a consultant and they can be told whether they have breast cancer or not?
The leader of the Liberal Democrats raises an important point. It deserves a detailed answer, and I will provide that in writing to her.
Thank you. I have accepted an urgent question under Standing Order 12.66, and I call on Kirsty Williams to ask that urgent question. Kirsty Williams.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Will the Minister make a statement on the decision by Welsh Government to cease publication of Cabinet decision reports?
Well, Cabinet decision reports have never existed. What we do, of course, is publish Cabinet papers and minutes, which will continue. There's no change there, as long with evaluation reports, written oral statements, press releases and responses to consultations. But the decision reports regarding decisions that are taken in Cabinet, those decision reports, no decision has been taken on those because they don't exist.
Thank you. Can I thank the First Minister? Presiding Officer, I feel as if I must have fallen into an alternative universe. Because if you look at the Welsh Government's own website, it says, and I quote, Decision reports provide the facts and analysis on which ministers have taken their decisions. It then goes on to say that a decision has been taken to stop publishing said reports as part of a streamlining process. Now, either they exist or they, seemingly now in the world of the First Minister, they don't exist. Now, I don't know about a streamlining process, First Minister. It seems like to me you are trying to streamline transparency. Surely it is not too much to ask to have, and I again quote your own website, the facts and analysis on which your ministers have taken decisions in the public domain. The people of Wales deserve to know on what basis your cabinet makes decisions. And with that in mind, in the interest of open government, will you reconsider the decision that was published on your own government website?
Well, again, these are not cabinet decision reports. These are not to do with cabinet. Now, I'm going to make a confession to the leader of the Liberal Democrats, and that is there was a mistake on our website. Oh. It has now been corrected. But I will explain what has happened. It's not to do with cabinet or to do with cabinet decisions. Others on the benches opposite will know that cabinet decisions are published via cabinet minutes and, of course, through cabinet papers, and that continues. They continue to be published. But there were never decision reports on decisions taken in cabinet. What there were decision reports that were published after ministers had taken decisions, but not acting collectively as cabinet, just to get that absolutely clear. Now, in terms of that issue, the information on which ministers take their decisions, of course, is available through the submissions. All the decision reports did was pretty much duplicate what was already in submissions. When we looked at the people who are accessing decision reports, hardly anyone ever read them. I mean, for example, some of them, the important ones, were made available through press releases, and ministers were able to, members were able to ask ministers questions on them. But the vast majority of them were hugely mundane. They took up a huge amount of time in order to publish them for documents that hardly anybody read. Now, look, as far as we are concerned, she makes the allegation that we're in some way not an open government. We publish cabinet papers, we publish cabinet minutes. Her party didn't. Her party didn't in Westminster. They never did that. We publish our evaluation reports. We publish written and oral statements. We publish responses to consultations. I stand here for 3/4 of an hour, longer than anybody else in the UK, taking questions. She has the opportunity of asking me 6 to 9 questions on the floor at times, at least 3. I do not think that anybody could seriously argue that somehow we are not open to scrutiny.
Andrew Archie-Davies.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I do feel as if I'm in an episode of Yes Minister with these explanations. I'm sure the gallery feel the same, First Minister. Obviously, a decision has been taken to change the way that the decision-making system of government works or is disclosed to the public. You've disclosed that there is an inaccuracy in your website, which has been corrected, and I think we're grateful for that. Could you give clarity via issuing a statement exactly how the process will change? Because there has been a change, you can't deny that, by this announcement, so that we can then make an assessment whether there is a creep, shall we say, in pulling back from transparency, which is what this place is meant to be determined in on behalf of the people who vote us here to scrutinise the decisions your government takes. And in particular, when you look at the decision on the judicial review and the M4 Black route, there was an issue there about the ability of advisers to be present to answer questions around the decision-making process as to how that decision was arrived at. Have you reflected on the evidence that's been put before you, and is that the reason why this decision has been taken?
Well, the government was successful in the judicial review, so clearly that argument carried no weight in court. Clearly that doesn't have any more merit from our point of view. But bear in mind that the UK government doesn't do this, the Scottish government doesn't do this, and no one else does. And the reason is it duplicates very much the submissions that are already provided to ministers. The major decisions are members are told about, of course, through press releases, through letters, I know, from the Economy Minister, and members are made aware of those. I mean, some of the decision reports, most of the decision reports, I'd argue, that are provided on the website are incredibly mundane. They take up time as far as officials are concerned. We know that money is difficult and officials' time is more restricted. You know, for example, called in planning applications, funding for car park extensions, I mean, these are not things that I think members would expect to see a full decision report published online about. The important decisions, yes, I'd expect that, and members should have those communicated to them. But I come back to this point. In terms of some kind of creep, as the Leader of the Opposition put it, towards secrecy, who else publishes cabinet papers and minutes? The UK government doesn't. Evaluation reports. Who else has so many written and oral statements in terms of the letters that ministers send out as well, and in terms of the opportunity to scrutinise both me and other ministers? We are scrutinised more than any other government anywhere in the UK. And that is something we accept, but I don't think it can be that the accusation can be levelled at us that in some way we are hiding from scrutiny. There's great opportunity for members to do that, and we will carry on publishing cabinet minutes and cabinet decisions.
Leanne Wood.
Well, so much for a new kind of politics. We've heard a huge amount of spin here from you this afternoon, First Minister. Now, I wanted to raise a point of order under Standing Order 12.4, but that wasn't allowed by the presiding officer because, First Minister, you gave a misleading statement to me in answer to my question on this about the publication of cabinet decisions. That website is still there today, now. It's there. And it says,
Sorry, I'm not being misleading.
It says that from the 28th of September 2015, as a result of streamlining our process for ministerial advice, we no longer produce decision reports. Previous decision reports, it says, previous decision reports can be found on the National Archives of the UK Government Web Archive, except when you click on every one of those links, there's nothing there. So will the presiding officer please require the First Minister to clarify whether Cabinet Ministers' decisions will be made public in the future or whether they will be kept secret? The situation has changed. Can you please explain to us how?
I'm sorry, I'm not going to be accused of misleading this chamber, because the problem was the Leader of Plaid Cymru not knowing the question that she'd asked. She said to me, why are cabinet decisions not being published? I explained to her that cabinet papers, she should have got the question right then. Cabinet papers and minutes would continue to be published as they always have been. There is no question of ministers' decisions being kept secret, being kept from the public of the people of Wales. If you can't get the question right, don't ask it.
Order, order. The First Minister is trying to answer the questions. He's trying to answer the questions. Simon Thomas.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, your pettifogging and legalistic approach to this question is not doing you any favours at all. One thing I do remember when I was a senior special advisor for the government that you were part of is that these decision reports were often scoured by journalists and then used to challenge ministers, including Plaid Cymru ministers, on the decisions that they'd taken. And Elin Jones will remember that. That was part of transparency. That was part of the process. As Leanne Wood has already pointed out, if you now go to the website that your website links onto for these decisions, the page you were looking for does not exist in the UK Government Web Archive. That's the transparency you're bringing to your government at the moment. Now, on the 28th of May, you tweeted about FIFA, that it needed transparency at the top and football needed a fresh start. Is this your pitch for a job in FIFA?
Sorry. Is he really suggesting that I am in the same category as Sepp Blatter? I mean, let's get some perspective here, shall we, from Plaid Cymru. I mean, it's one thing to make a comment about whether you believe or not the decisions will be communicated in a particular way. It's another comment to suggest that somehow the government is involved in some kind of financial chicanery, which is what he seems to be. No. That's what you implied, and people will have heard it. The reality of the situation is this: that we will continue. Well, shouldn't have said it then. The reality of the situation is that ministerial decisions will continue to be communicated to members, as they always have been, through statements, both written and oral, and members will continue to have all the scrutiny opportunities they've always had to ask ministers questions in this chamber, as they have always had. and Cabinet papers and minutes will continue to be published, and Cabinet decisions will continue to be published.
I have no one else. Thank you, First Minister. We now move to item 2, which is...